Alright YouTube, so we are back of course to talk about some Final Fantasy VII Remake, and what we have today is a rumor about Square Enix possibly doing a remake anime, collaborating with Netflix, but also something else I want to throw here at the beginning of the video. That's something I wouldn't necessarily do an entire video about, and it says Square Enix is releasing a light novel specifically about the characters of Tifa and Aerith, and it's going to be accompanied with the Material Ultimania Plus, and it's releasing in just a couple of months. Now, the title of the light novel is The Trace of Two Paths. It'll be written by Kazushige Nojima, who's been the scenario writer for a lot of the Final Fantasy games, if not most of them, and it'll be over 200 pages. I've seen Silicon Era's article say that it's 228 pages. I've seen Audrey on Twitter say it's 288 pages. I don't know which one's correct. Either way, this will be releasing on July 15th, 2021. You can buy the Material Ultimania Plus with the light novel bundle for about $51, or you can buy the light novel itself for about $15. And as of right now, to nobody's surprise, there doesn't seem to be an English version in the works, or at least one that we know of, which is very common. Most of the things that they make over there, like the Ultimanias and shit like that, we just don't often get English. According to Silicon Era, the description of the novel mentions that it will elaborate on the unknown story of Tifa and Aerith's two different paths. This is obviously very intriguing, because I feel like we know quite a bit about these characters, so I'm curious what the unknown story of these two characters is going to be. Also, according to Audrey's Twitter, there's going to be a postcard-sized children's book accompanied with this bundle that features the character of Stamp going on errands, which is obviously kind of weird, but there's also the potential of this being something kind of important, even though it's disguised as a children's book. We know the character of Stamp has some sort of important meaning, and maybe this book could give us a little bit of what that is. Also, we do actually have the cover for the Material Ultimania Plus, which is pretty much just a different angle of like our group at the end of the highway, like overlooking out the outskirts of Midgar, which I thought was kind of cool. Even though it's not much, it still lets us see a bit of the rest of the world, even if it is just like a desert wasteland. Anyways, we should probably get on to the main topic of the video. Probably could have turned that into its own video, it seems. Goddamn, it's the hell of an intro. So what we have is a user over on 4chan, yes, let's all collectively roll our eyes together, saying that Square Enix is making a Final Fantasy VII Remake anime, also apparently Kingdom Hearts anime, despite there already being one that exists. Which I honestly wasn't aware even existed until making this video. I'm not really much of an anime person or that much of a Kingdom Hearts fan either, but for some reason they're also making some sort of Kingdom Hearts show with Disney+, so there's that. Anyways, the post says, both of these projects will be directed by Nomura. The anime dedicated to Final Fantasy VII Remake will tell new stories that intertwine with the plot and events of the main game. The first section will be dedicated to the events that precedes the story of Final Fantasy VII Remake, while the second section will be dedicated to the events that occur simultaneously with the events of the game, coming to the end, and also anticipating something for the future. While the Kingdom Hearts anime will be much shorter, but definitely more complex. Made entirely in CG, according to the description, it will combine multiple events from multiple games, such as Kingdom Hearts Union X, Birth by Sleep, and even Kingdom Hearts 3. As for the Final Fantasy XIV TV series, it is in the final stages of making. Obviously, we're just here for the remake-related stuff, so according to this post, the first section or first half or whatever of the anime would be dedicated to the events that precede the remake story. Now, if we're having this discussion like this is legit, like just kind of talking about this, what does that mean exactly? Would that be like the prequel stuff to FF7? Would that be before Crisis Core, kind of the events that led up to FF7? Or is it actually talking about the events that led up to the remake story? Because obviously the remake story is, in a lot of ways, different than the FF7 story. Like, would it be giving us an explanation as to why things are different? Like, does it explain, like, the origin of the Whispers, the Whisper Harbinger, and all that other stuff, and what's going on with Sephiroth, and what's going on with Aerith, like, all that type of shit? Like, that'd be pretty interesting. I'd watch the hell out of that. I'd watch it anyways, because it's FF7, but I'd watch it even more if it's actually giving us some interesting shit. Something I'm not entirely sure of, at least with their brief description on this 4chan post, is this anime dedicated to just the first remake game, or the entire remake story? Because it talks about showing events that happen simultaneously with the remake story, but also coming to the end and leaving something for the future, as in, like, what's coming after, what's coming next. So I'd assume that it's just about Remake Part 1. If that's the case, that's very interesting, because it could show us, again, some more about the ending of Remake, kind of explaining things a little bit more, and maybe teasers for what's to come after. And look, I know a lot of people don't like supplemental materials to have to figure out the entire story. There's a problem with, like, Final Fantasy 15, for example. There's a lot of things you had to do or watch or play to understand the full story. So I can kind of understand why people would be a bit opposed to this, but I'm perfectly fine with it myself. I don't mind like light novels that kind of give some character backstory, or an anime that could kind of tell us more about what's going on with Remake, or whatever the story might be with an anime, if, again, it even exists at all. As for the probability of this, I mean, it's just a post on 4chan, grain of salt. We're all adults here. We understand that it's just some guy posting on a social media site. We won't really know unless we're told otherwise, right? As for right now, it's a cool idea. It's certainly possible. We've seen them do animes in the past with The Last Order, for example, which is also Final Fantasy VII related. And also, just kind of looking it up just for the sake of this video, Netflix seems to be the biggest streaming subscription service in Japan, so if they were going to do an FF7 Remake anime, then Netflix makes the most sense. Ultimately, of course, this does remain to be seen. I'm all for it personally, especially since it's FF7 related. I've watched some animes over the years. I'm just not super into anime. I don't watch all the different animes out there. There's got to be certain ones that pique my interest. And given that this would be related to FF7, but more specifically Remake, I'd definitely be watching it. And honestly, I don't think it's impossible just because since they started really talking about Remake in 2019 and leading up to the release and shit, I mean, they've been beating this thing dry. They've been milking the shit out of FF7 and Remake. So I wouldn't be surprised if they want to also do some sort of anime TV show or something. But of course, I want to pass up to you guys in the comment section. What are your thoughts on this? And I know it's just a 4chan post, but do you think what are the probability of this? How likely do you think it is that they're going to do an anime dedicated to FF7 Remake? Either way, that's the video. Hopefully you enjoyed it. If you did, give it a thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel if you guys only want to see more Final Fantasy VII Remake content. Turn on my notifications. Follow me on Twitter, @DavidYT. I'm on Discord. Links to my social networks are in the description and in the outro. Later, guys.
Used to care what people thought, but now I care more, and nobody out here's got it figured out. So therefore, I've lost all hope of a happy ending, depending on whether or not it's worth it. So insecure, no one's perfect. We spend it with no shame. We blow that like Coltrane. We in here like Rogaine, or leave it like Cobain.